I want to talk about the events going on last weekend with HTC Throwdown. I might throw in a little bit of information from DreamHack as well. A lot of people were interested in talking about player performances, so this is a Taffo talk just to go over, just to recap and summarize last weekend. So this will have spoilers. I apologize if you didn't watch the stream. So let's take it right off the top. Leffen, won the tournament. Bracket pretty straightforward. Had Birdo into S2J into Froot Loop, who upset MacD, into Silent Wolf, into Hungrybox twice. Now, like I said for Mango at Paragon, I actually didn't think Mango's Paragon bracket was very impressive. He just kind of played it out. Beat Plup and I believe beat Mutaking twice. Otherwise, it was a pretty free bracket. I think overall, given the player pool, he didn't play everybody, and I'm referring to Leffen. He played Silent Wolf, who looked a step slow on the Foxotos. But to be fair, Leffen did amazingly against Hungrybox. It looked like after watching the first 1 or 2 games against Hungrybox and winners, that it pretty much looked like it was in Leffen's bag. He wins 6-1, 3-1 in one of the sets, and 3 on the other. So people have asked me, does this bump Leffen up? Not so much in the sense of it, the performance impressing me like to new levels where you see like this like gauntlet of a bracket. I didn't really think Leffen had a gauntlet, but at this day and age, I really look in terms of the top players in the Big Six, not so much like for them to have an impressive bracket for them, but more so for them to just even maintain what they're expected to do. And so yeah, he was supposed to beat Silent Wolf, he was supposed to beat S2J, and he maintained status quo. But that actually is becoming a lot more difficult these days, and that's where we saw Mango, and Mutaking, underperform. So relatively speaking, I think Leffen, did do well for himself compared to other people, in his, tier, of players. And just being able to maintain that you can at least beat the top 15 is actually becoming a lot more important now. And so Mango definitely dropped the ball. Lost to Drug Fox in a very impressive 3-game set. I question Mango's counterpicks decisions. I think he totally forgot that Drug Fox had a Marth on FD. I was really surprised that he did not ban that stage. I talked to Mango later, and he said he forgot. Not Johnning for Mango. This is something that you really need to know, especially when every game matters. And so I was kind of disappointed that he forgot about FD Marth, although it's not to say that he's overly bad on that matchup. He's been Mutaking, but you can't be making those mistakes, if you're a top level player, because counterpicking is as big as picks and bans in League of Legends or Dota. If you mess up picks and bans, you may be screwing up, a bunch of other things for yourself. And then he also lost to MacD immediately in losers, so probably one of the worst performances we have seen from Mango, from a Mango that has actually played his main characters. I think the last time we could trace back to when he's plays this low as a Fox, Falco, or Jigglypuff is probably back, at least for a national tournament, was probably OC3, where he got 4-stocked by Shadow BTZO in losers. So you have to go way back in the history books to look at a time where he was playing either of those 3 characters and performed this poorly. MacD had a very impressive performance overall. And, if you really track his results over the past year, it's actually really impressive. He's starting to go, toe-to-toe with S2J trading sets, whereas a year ago, you could safely say he was a step behind S2J, Westballs, Lucky, Fiction, and Mango. But now we see MacD taking a lot more sets off of Lucky. He's going about 50-50 with S2J, goes about 50-50 with Westballs, and so we've seen so much improvement from MacD over the past year. And to be fair, MacD actually had a close set with Mango at CEO, so it's really nice to see the level of improvement really pay off here. And to see that his practice, is kind of boosting him from where I thought he was about like a top 25 level player about a year ago to now you can actually make a case to say that he's around 15 and maybe he keeps climbing up the ranks. But it's rather unfortunate that, he beats Mango, he beats Plup in losers and somehow gets 13th. But I think that partly comes with also losing to Froot Loop. Froot Loop is another great player that no one really talks about. Watches Falco, really impressive against floaty characters, and that's one thing that the Midwest is strangely really good at. So you watch like players like Froot Loop and Moose, they're really good at matchups like Sheik, Peach, Samus. I think they get a lot of Duck, Kalamazoo, Vans. I don't know exactly who they practice with, but they very much impressed me in those matchups. Who else is there? Drugfox. Very impressive performance for the most part. Beats Mango in a best of 3. Gets his revenge from Evo. So very nice win for him. Also beats SFAT in a nail biter where he narrowly clutches a set. Has a nice set with Koval. Falls short to Silent Wolf twice. Silent Wolf is actually, for a player that has no Sheiks in his region, is mysteriously like one of the toughest foxes I've ever played against as Sheik. I was very fortunate enough to warm Silent Wolf up prior to his match against Drug Fox. A lot of the matches went to 2 to 3 stock, so he's really good at the matchup. Go figure. Who else is there? And I think we always forget overall that the player that doesn't win the tournament, kind of goes under the radar. So a player that gets second or third a lot, we don't really talk about them as much as they probably should. There's a disproportionate amount of praise that goes from first place to second and third. Hungrybox, this is a guy that, is so consistent, almost always has been top 3 in the majority of the tournaments this year. Especially in the latter half of this year, he's been stepping it up to where now you can actually say that, in my book, personally, I think Armada is number 1. Leffen, very narrowly number 2, has some consistency issues. And then you can put Hungrybox 3 based on results. It sounds counterintuitive, but if you look at the year of 2015, this guy, gets to grand finals or he gets really far in brackets. The last really bad performance he's had was probably, I'd like to say Big House 4. There might have been another one. It's either that or he loses to Mango early. And he's just been a total model of consistency. He did lose to Professor Pro, but at Paragon, not too long ago, but he mauled through losers and just beat everybody else. So it seems like he has a minor weakness towards foxes, but he seems to take down everybody with relative ease. There were so many upsets. I just can't remember all of them, but it just really shows that just in this modern era of Melee, you can't sleep on anybody. Whether you're a top 5 player, top 15 player, like everybody can just somehow lose. I mean, it's not to discredit their opponents. Their opponents play really well, and that's why these sets are getting a lot closer and closer. And the gaps between each tier, not just the top 5 and like everybody else, but you look at the tiers between like top 15 and top 30 level players and top 30 and top 60 level players. You're going to see a lot more interactions in the sense of upsets between these tiers. It's not to say that the top 60 level player is outright better than the top 30 player, but you're going to see it be closer. So Homemade Waffles, congrats to you. He played really well against Plup. I know Plup kind of flubbed a few things, but Homemade Waffles played phenomenally in that set to upset Plup. Cactar's Marth actually really surprised me, and so I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but Cactar's Marth against S2J and Wizzy, and when we watch Wizzy's Marth play, or Wizzy's Falcon play against the Moon, or we watch the 20GX guys play against PPU or Ken, we kind of just assume, okay, Wizzy, Falcon main, dominates the Moon, beat Dart, it's going to be a free match for Wizzy to beat Cactar, and Cactar struggled with Fox in the matchup against Wizzy. And so it's really interesting and really impressive to see Cactar, utilize the neutral game so well and outplay Wizzy to win a set. Honestly, I would have bet a lot of money on Wizzy. I would have said, yeah, Wizzy wins this set 9 out of 10 times, and Cactar, proved me wrong. So really impressive wins by Cactar to beat both Wizzy and S2J. I was really impressed by his Marth. Speaking of Marths, Koval was a really impressive Marth too, showing his proficiency in dual maining Fox and Marth. The main reason he picked up Marth was because he absolutely hates the Fox Ditto. It's been one of his weaker matchups. If you look at his stats in 2014, you can clearly see, he has a weakness in the Fox Ditto. DU Fox with it, especially you could see in the round robin that he was getting outclassed by all the other top 15 level Foxes. So to go from a place where, I would feel that Lucky would win the head-to-head against Koval, at least in Fox Dittos, to see like Koval can use the Marth to counter Fox is just a really impressive display of picking up a new main, and not only picking up a new main, but beating top 15 level players with what's considered secondary. Plup, unfortunately, losing early in a bracket can be disastrous for you. Plup is still, a really impressive player in my book, and I'm not quite sure what to really think of Southern players in Peach, because we saw Drug Fox, a couple weeks ago lose to MacD at Paragon in the Sheik versus Peach matchup, and this weekend we saw Plup lose in the Sheik versus Peach matchup. So I'm not sure if it's a lack of experience or maybe MacD is just really good. It's too hard for me to tell what factors lead to, Plup losing to MacD. Does Plup not know the matchup? Is MacD really good at the matchup? Is the matchup closer than we think it is? It could be a combination of any of those three. And of course, what's like really important and insightful for me is that I've lamented over this before as friends with Kevin Toy PPU, is this curse to not make top 8, and this time he loses to, I believe, Lucky and winners, chokes the set away, and then he loses to Mutaking and losers for 13th. But what that shows me is that in this day and age, Koval made it into top 8 by upsetting a Big 6 member. Silent Wolf ends up completing the upset cycle on Mutaking. Mango loses to 2 top 15 level players. So at the end of the day, at a big national, in order to make top 8, chances are you're probably going to have to beat a top 6 level player, and that's something that has always been PPU's struggle. And so I think for any player that wants to make it into the top 8, they're going to have to win at least one set. So hopefully, PPU pulls it together. The matches have not been largely favorable for him for a while, and maybe it keeps holding him back. Anything else that's interesting? So I want to just talk about Armada here. He wasn't at HTC Throwdown. Didn't drop a single game at HTC. Made West Bowls look like a joke Falco. It was the cleanest 6-0 that I've ever seen. And so just going out of this, yes, Armada may have gone second place at a lot of tournaments prior to Evo, but his consistency is so unparalleled by anybody else in his tier. And so like moving ahead, yeah, he may not be the outright favorite to win, but like I know in the back of my mind that Armada is not getting worse than like 3rd place at the majority of tournaments. And if he gets worse than that, it's a total fluke. So Armada, just really impressive last weekend. And West Balls is no slouch either, but just looked like totally outclassed. And so that's pretty much it for most of my thoughts. The closing thought I also have is I'm putting Chillin' Dude on blast. Chillin', you lost to Dunk a couple weeks ago at Paragon. You lost to Caar at HTC Throwdown. What is wrong with you? Step it up. But a lot of exciting Smash action. Big House 5. I really don't know who's going to win. I don't know who's going to place top 8, let alone top 16. I think there are going to be a lot of names that will be taken out early in upsets. So yeah, I just really don't know what to think of anything anymore at this point. It's definitely exciting. It's hard to make predictions. In some ways, it's hard to prepare the analyst desk because there's so many different combinations of results that can happen. But I think there's going to be a lot of exciting melee, and so I'm looking forward to what's ahead.